Hi friends, I'm Paula Townsend from Wonderfeet Kids Museum, and I'm so happy that you could join us today to learn about the importance of pollinators. I have a question for you. How many of you like apples? I'm sure a lot of you do. I have a variety of apples right here. They come in so many different colors, red and yellow and green. But do you know how apples grow? Today I'm going to read you a story about how apples grow. How do apples grow? By Betsy Maestro. In winter, an apple tree is bare. It's hard to imagine it covered with flowers or fruit. But even in the cold and snow, tiny leaf buds and flower buds are waiting to open. Inside each bud are tiny curled up leaves. Inside each flower bud are all the parts of an apple flower. Apple flowers are pink and white and sweet to smell, and each flower is the beginning of an apple. When spring comes, there are many hours of sunlight. The days are longer and warmer. The leaf buds open. Tiny green leaves appear on each twig. When the apple tree is covered with leaves, the flower buds begin to open. Up close, you can see bunches of small pink and white flowers at the end of each twig. Each flower can become an apple, but all the right things must happen first. An apple flower has many parts, and each has a special job to do. Around the outside are the sepals. They form a little cup to protect the rest of the flower. As the flower blossoms, the sepals open too. And there's those sepals right there. The pretty colored petals and sweet flowery smell bring many insects and birds to the apple tree. These animal helpers are needed for flowers to make fruit. Let's go inside a flower. There's a male and female part that makes a new apple grow. The male parts are called stamens. Each flower has many stamens. If you look inside an apple flower, you can see all the stamens sticking up in a circle. At the top of each stamen, pollen is made. Pollen is a yellow powder. Each flower has thousands of pollen grains. Each grain of pollen holds male cells. The female part of the flower is called a pistil. You can see some of the pistil right at the center of the flower. The pistil has many tubes with sticky tops. At the bottom of the flower, out of sight, these tiny tubes meet. The place where the tubes meet is the ovary. The ovary is the part of the pistil that holds the female cells. The ovary will become the inside core of the apple. An apple can grow when the male cells join with the female cells, when the flower is fertilized. The male cells from the pollen have to reach the female cells in the ovary. That sounds easy, but it's not. The apple flower can be fertilized only by pollen from a different apple tree. Since apple trees can't move, they can't carry the pollen themselves. They need helpers for this job. Bees are some of the apple tree's best helpers. Bees are attracted to the colorful petals of the flowers. They like the smell of the sweet flower juice, the nectar. Bees fly from tree to tree collecting nectar. They will use the nectar to make honey. As the bees gather nectar, pollen grains stick to their bodies. When they land on the flowers of the other apple trees, some of this pollen falls off. The grains of the pollen land on that sticky top of the pistil tubes. The male cells in the pollen grains travel down these tiny tubes. At the bottom, they reach the ovary. Here, the male cells join with the female cells. The flower is fertilized. Now, the petals fall to the ground. The petals are no longer needed. They have done their job. The flower's been fertilized. How? Now, an apple will begin to grow. It will grow right at the spot where the flower meets the stem. As the fertilized ovary grows bigger, it forms the apple's core, which holds the seeds. They will be well protected here. Around the ovary, the rest of the apple is swelling. It's getting bigger too. This is the white fleshy part that you can eat. And there it is. Look at the bottom of a ripe apple. You can see the bits of the dry sepals from the flower. When the apple is cut open, you can see the seeds. Look carefully, and you'll see 5 little compartments or sections. There may be as many as 10 seeds inside your apple. The seeds are the fertilized female cells. Apple seeds can grow into new apple trees. The apple tree must feed the growing apples. By using sunlight, water, and air, the leaves make a special kind of sugar. This sugar feeds the fruit. It takes about 50 leaves to make the sugar for 1 apple. All summer long, the apples grow bigger and riper. When fall arrives, the apples are almost ripe. During the last few weeks, the apples can feed themselves. They make their own sugar now. The sugar makes the apples sweet. Sunlight helps the leaves and the apples to make food. It also helps to change the skin color of some apples. Different kinds of apples have different skin colors. Some turn red, others turn yellow. Some variety of apples stay green, even when they are ripe. And I have some right here, those different varieties. When the apples are ripe, it's time for picking. If no one picks the apples, they will fall to the ground. Animals will eat some of them and may carry the apple seeds to other places. Some of these apple seeds will grow into new apple trees. Some of the apples may just rot on the ground. After a while, they'll become part of the soil. They will help to feed the tree. As fall ends, the tree loses leaves. New buds are already forming. They will be next year's apples. For now, the apple tree's work is over. For you, it's time for the best part. It's apple eating time. The end. I hope you enjoyed that story. I hope you enjoyed that story about how apples grow. We're going to spend a little bit more time now on the importance of the pollinators. Let's look again at a flower. Here I have a poster of a cutaway of an apple flower. So we learned that an apple is the part of a flower. It comes from a flower, that apple flower. Apple flowers, though, have to be fertilized by pollen from a different apple tree. And so they have to rely on those pollinators to go from different apple trees to help pollinate. And if we look at our big poster, you can see the stamen, which has the pollen, and the pistil that has that sticky top. And when the pollen goes down through the tubes into the ovary, this is where the apple grows. Pollinators are animals and insects. Some of them are birds. They can be bats. They can even be ants. But in the story, we talked about the honeybees. And the honeybees, they are the ones, they are the greatest. There's the greatest amount of honeybees that really pollinate our flowering plants. We can see those soon. Some honeybees may even be out now. So if you went into the backyard, you might spy some. But there's a problem now with our honeybees. Their beehives are starting to die. They're starting to collapse. Scientists don't understand what's going on, but it seems like the worker bees, the bees that go out to pollinate, they're not going back to the hives. And so when they don't come back, the queen leaves the hive, and then the hive collapses. They are calling this a colony collapse disorder. Scientists aren't sure what's going on. They are certainly studying bees around the world to try to figure out what may be the problem. And that leads us to our challenge for today. Our challenge is, can we engineer a device that could mimic what bees do? How could we pollinate flowers? Well, if you had to pollinate an apple tree, how would you do that? Well, we are going to ask you to make a hand pollinator. So it's going to be a device that's going to fit in your hand, and it's got to have something that will be able to pick up pollen and drop pollen off, just like a bee. Now, I have some things in my house that I've found that I'm going to try, and you can use these, or you can find some other things. I have a cotton ball, and I have a straw. Because I want to make sure that I have something to hang on to, I thought, maybe a craft stick and a pipe cleaner. I also picked up a little bit of tin foil. I don't know if that's going to work or not. And a little bit of wire, or you could even use some tape. Now, the first thing I'm thinking about is, again, what will pick up and drop off pollen? So I need to think about some pollen. So I came up with some turmeric. Turmeric is just a spice that was in my cupboard, but you could use dry mustard or baking powder or baking soda to test, because we have to test some of these objects to see if they're going to pick up the pollen and drop it off. So I'm going to predict that a cotton ball is going to pick up some pollen. So I'm going to just dip it into my pollen, tap it, and look at that. There's some pollen right there, my pretend pollen. And then I'm going to drop it. I'm going to pretend that I'm going to a flower, and I'm just going to tap it, and I got some pollen right on my flower. So I know that this would be a good thing to use as part of my hand pollinator. Let me try something else. Let's see. I'm thinking that I'm going to try this foil. I wonder if the foil will pick up. I'm going to just press it down. Oh, look at some pollen got on that foil. And will it drop it off? And I'm just going to try it again. Not as much, but it dropped off a little bit. I might use that. I'm going to try one more thing. I'm going to try my pipe cleaner. And I'm going to dip it again. And look at it. It did get some pollen. And then we'll try to, and we're going to drop it off. And it really dropped off some pollen. So I'm decided that I will definitely use these three things, my pipe cleaner, cotton ball, and maybe the foil. I will use those when I make my hand pollinator. I may be using my craft stick as part of the handle. So what we would like you to do is we would like you to find some materials and engineer a hand pollinator. You can take a picture of it and send it to Wonderfeet Facebook page, or you could also send it to info@wonderfeet.kidsmuseum.org, which I'll also put on this video, those two addresses. You could also draw a picture of your hand pollinator and send it to us. I'd just like to leave you with a couple of other ideas. You know, now that it's spring, there are so many flowers that are coming up. I have a tulip right here, and you could go and investigate the insides of a flower. And if I look in here, I'm going to see the stamen. And in between, and in the middle is that pistil. You can also go and observe some apple trees. You might have one in your yard and see where it's at. Are those leaf buds starting to open, or is it a little bit too early? So have fun investigating, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.